All right, Chelsea fans, welcome back to another edition. That's right, of the London is Blue podcast. Dan, one of your hosts here. No Brandon, because the birthday boy gets the presence of not having to talk about the Dortmund match, the final match of Chelsea's preseason that we had a chance to watch. No Craig Burley, no pitch conversation. Brandon is just enjoying life, so it was me and Nick on a little LIBP after dark. And Nick, we're recovered somewhat from all of our preseason travels, but we had to get a little bit of a conversation in on this episode, on this match that just transpired.
That's right. You all know that Brandon's initials are BBB. The middle B stands for birthday. And what a gift that we just received on Brandon's birthday. A tremendous affair on a terrible pitch. We're just going to come out and say it. It was awful. We're glad no one got seriously injured, knock on wood for Nkunku, but unfortunate scenes in Chicago. And sorry to all those who made the trip out to see the pitch bobble a little bit on him. It's a tough look, Dan.
Yeah, Soldier Field was not necessarily the place you wanted to play or the location you wanted to be at on this Wednesday, August the 2nd. But look, we have a lot that we're going to talk about. We're going to give our 3-word preseason review, talk about what actually happened in the match, which will be a very short part of this show, really talking about the who impressed and who won preseason. And we'll try to come down with one response for each of us, even though I'm sure we will talk about who our second and third place choices are for runner-ups as we do. Talk about the areas that still concern us after watching now 5 preseason matches, and get a little bit of a transfer news roundup before we send you off on this one. And so, Nick, I'm going to throw it to you, but I'm going to give you a little bit of time to think about it with a preseason 3-word review, because we did get some from the people. People responded very quick. Again, we're recording this 25 minutes after full time, after they canceled the penalties and decided they weren't going to do it. Craig Burley was actually able to speak something into existence. And we had things from Loco Coco Papa Pops with Last Chance Salone with the one-word combination. Very, very good. Brent with the Fit, Fast, Furious. Trying to make reference maybe to a popular movie franchise there. I like that one. That was good. We had Hess with the We Back Up, which I think was the general vibe of preseason, and who doesn't love a little bit of a Wire reference, as we are very much want to do.
Omar's coming, baby. Let's go.
CFC Opinions with Relit My Fire. I think there was a lot of re-engagement and passion brought back into Chelsea and Chelsea supporters after watching it how the preseason went on. Trolls with Very Good Meal. We're getting a little bit of a throwback to last summer, and that feels maybe not the right type of tone, but, you know, the meals were good. We had good meals on the trip, so I guess that tracks. So I gave you enough time. Do you have a 3-word preseason review?
I do. Road trip vibes. Vibes are high. It was a big road trip. It was 5 cities in 2.5 weeks, but feels like we're coming out of this with a lot more answers to the questions that we had.
Ooh, I like that. I think I'll also give you a little bit of a movie reference in mind, which was not a hangover. You know, this was a party. This was a celebration. But to your point, the vibes are very strong, and I don't think there's a lot of coming down from what we saw in this preseason from Chelsea. Chelsea have done a job. We've seen individual players stack performance on performance on performance to get better throughout the preseason. We've seen some transition from one position to now being depth in another position. It's been a really strong and positive preseason, and Chelsea went unbeaten throughout all of it, which is another very rare thing for Chelsea to have a preseason where they win a bunch of games and then are also unbeaten too. So all in all, this one feels very, very good.
Yeah, it does. I mean, and I think we're kind of talking about the preseason as a whole now that it is mercifully complete. Again, this is 2 matches more than last preseason, right? And we all know the difficulties of last preseason. There were some difficulties with this as well, but the preparation feels different. The team is completely been turned upside down, bar a few players who are probably still on their way out and a few that may come in that we'll talk about at the end of the show. And it feels like Aura FC is back in play. And, I think that's due to the injection of new energy. I think there was, has been a few players who have been kind of let loose a little bit to go do what they do best. And, a new manager and new structure that has these guys fit enough to play the style that they want to play. Now, are we going to talk about a whole lot of match specifics from this one? No, because it was frankly played at a pace that wasn't necessarily like super high or super involved. I think there were a lot of players who were probably just out there so they didn't get fined or they didn't get hurt. But at the end of the day, if you think about the comparison, Dan, that we have from the last preseason, it's night and fucking day.
Yeah, this is not Orlando Arsenal 4, Chelsea 0. This is a much different ending and capstone to their U.S. trip. And I think even generally the Chelsea staff look to be in better spirits as we saw them throughout multiple stops on the tour this year versus how it was last year. So really nice to see that transition. We want to talk about a couple things about the match. But before we do that, we just want to always say thank you to the wonderful people who support us on Patreon, patreon.com/LondonBluePod. Great way to support the show. They also have free ways, though. Leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And if you don't know, I'm sure Nick would love to fill you in that we got really good news from Spotify this morning when we woke up.
Yeah, it was very, very cool. We didn't see this coming. They didn't send us a text beforehand. We just kind of woke up to it in the States, and Spotify put together a list of the top Premier League fan podcasts, and we are, of course, Chelsea's representative, which is fantastic. There are plenty of other great Premier League shows, too, if you're looking to do some advanced scouting on our opponents this year so that we bury them. But yeah, look, very grateful to everyone who listens to us on Spotify and helps us shoot up the ranks. We've had a ton of 5-star reviews on that platform. And, it's just like being in person and seeing everyone for the last 2 weeks. It's incredibly validating to get that sort of feedback from a platform that, outside of Apple Podcasts is the biggest platform for podcasts in the world. And, I think, Dan, the good news train is coming. We just had a massive month of downloads. We're going to start sharing more of that information with you guys because, good news is good news regardless of what it is. And, over 360,000 downloads for the month of July. Like, you guys are really, really helping us do a job here. And we cannot thank you enough for all the support.
And one of our best months on YouTube, as well as we continue to pass by that 25,000 mark. I think it's around 25,200 something. We'd love to hit 26,000 by the time the Premier League season starts. You can help us do that as well. Again, another free way to support your hopefully favorite Chelsea podcast. But again, we're going to talk about some of the things with this match. And Nick, I promised you, because I said you were allowed to talk about it for 30 seconds, that we could talk about the state of the pitch that Ed Sheeran created. I'll give you 2 things to kickstart it, which were 3-word match reviews from our wonderful Discord community. Chris L. with Grass Wasn't Greener, and TK Lote with Pitch Gave Everything. So I will now allow you to go on your 30-second rant on the state of the pitch, and then we can talk about maybe some more technical specifics of the game.
I already did a bunch at the beginning of the show, so I will just make it a quick thing. It's not acceptable, okay? It's just not acceptable. If you're going to host a sporting event, you can't do it right after a concert if the pitch is that bad. I would have called this game off if I were the FC series based on the way the pitch is. We don't know what Nkunku's injury is going to be, but if it's anything serious, it's Ruben vibes in New England. And you could say that, the pitch in Chicago really sandbagged us due to the amount of sand that was in there. Ollie Glanville was making tons of sand references in our WhatsApp, but yeah, just the rest of the pitches that we played on were fine this preseason. They were fine. They weren't, phenomenal, but they were fine. This was not.
Guerrilla marketing for Dune 2 in theaters this fall. Look, I think the other thing pregame that was interesting that had a lot of people talking was the fact that Reece James was captain. Second time now that Reece James would be captain in a match that Thiago Silva was also on, and both Chilwell and Thiago have been on the pitch. Pochettino did clarify post-match, as we get these comments in as we're talking, on whether James was officially taking the armband ahead of Silva. He said no. I said, not yet. It's still 10 days until the first game. I don't know if we're going to change what Reece is a possibility. So being a little coy, but it feels like 2 times in a row now. Look, once is just random, twice is a bit of a pattern building, and so it'll be interesting to see if that does carry forward. But look, the armband seems to suit him well now.
Yeah, it was interesting too when they did the trophy raise in DC for winning the Premier League Summer Series, which, unlike other clubs, we are not going to celebrate as a real trophy. Okay, Tottenham. So just a heads up on all that. That Thiago Silva kind of just like guided him up there, and didn't do the trophy raise until Reece had already kind of lifted it. And look, I don't think it's very hard to tell who's going to be captain at this point. Poch can slow play it all he wants. I think the only thing that would stop Reece from being captain at this point is if he has some sort of injury or whatever, which, knock on wood, very audibly, we hope he does not. So that is just my kind of quick take on that. Thiago seemed to be very comfortable just kind of playing, vice captain or whatever it was this evening.
So on a difficult night for the players, on a difficult night for Chelsea, on a night where we were going to have penalties and they got called off, who were 1 or 2 of the players that impressed you with their performances on the pitch?
I mean, it was a little tough, frankly, to gather. I mean, Nico Jackson continues to stand out for me. Unlucky to not score 2 goals in this game. Frankly, to hit a couple of the Dortmund players pretty square on the night. But look, it's not only the goal scoring, it's the passing, it's the movement, it's the tracking, it's the tackling. You're getting it all from this guy, and it's something that really, I don't think anyone really knew what we were going to get, at least as a supporter, not someone on the technical staff, obviously. With him, and it just being in person, seeing the way that he was running and making things for other players. I mean, it just was really, really tremendous this preseason. And it's just, again, on a night like tonight where the pitch is bobbly and you don't know where the ball is going to necessarily bounce, and players are, I think, a little bit hesitant to do everything they would do on a normal pitch. He continued to just kind of drive the ball forward and had a nearly miraculous run that just one slight touch maybe takes him out of shooting range. And so, just cannot be impressed enough with Nico Jackson.
So I think another one that continued to impress again, and this is the stacked performances that I mentioned earlier. I think this was another really strong performance for Conor Gallagher. I think he is finding himself even in a little bit more of a deeper role, playing just kind of a all-around great center mid performance. I think there's the times where he is making really critical interceptions in the box. He's in extremely exceptional condition right now. Like his level of physical fitness, the way he was moving around some of the Dortmund players, and this has been the trend over the past couple of games, so it's going to sound repetitive because we keep on talking about it, but this Chelsea side keeps on looking fitter than their opponents every single week. We're a week or 2, or maybe even beyond now, ahead of where these other teams, some elite European competition, are. I think maybe the pinnacle of that is someone like Conor Gallagher, who is showing that he is ready for Pochettino's intense style of play, that he can find himself in a multitude of different midfield positions and contribute. I think maybe the question is this game, because he was a little further back, maybe was not necessarily as involved in any type of goal contributing actions, but I just think in general, showing that he was comfortable in that pivot, giving Poch another thought about how he can use Conor, is a really, really good sign.
Yeah, I would also talk about Levi Colwill on the night, who I thought was tremendous. New boy, new contract, new everything, committed to the club for an additional 6 years, a 5+1 deal, and took some really cool pictures in downtown Chicago to celebrate it. I think wrote a nice, although it is a little frustrating Chelsea fans just due to the Brighton shenanigans right now. Wrote a nice post about Brighton and that was basically the signal that he's like, I'm not coming back. There was a bunch of reporting yesterday on his new deal, but boy, he looks good back there. I mean, some of the balls over the top on the left wing, whether that was Nkunku or whether that was Mudryk, were great. Some of the outlet balls to Chilwell were great. So just some of the composure, for a young guy. He's just beyond his years, and he could have had a brace. He made 2 really critical back post runs, one in the first half, one in the second half. That if he just puts a solid power knee on that thing, the ball's in the back of the net. And I know there are a bunch of people who are like, he's saving it for Liverpool. God willing, that would be amazing. So I just Levi Colwill. First of all, congratulations on officially kind of solidifying your future at the best club in the world. Second of all, we cannot wait to see you play against Liverpool.
Yeah, the brace would have been very interesting considering the way he got into those positions, the balls over the top. I mean, the fact that we did score off of an assist from another set piece. So it was the Enzo-headed assist to a new Money Mace Bursto, as it were.
Oh, my God.
Look, very, very interesting. And this team should be scoring goals from set pieces. We do have a couple players who are very, very tall, very athletic, and can put themselves into strong positions in these type of areas. And so I would not be surprised if Levi, Silva, and others become significant contributors, and significant for a center back, I think, is like somewhere in the 3 to 5 goals per individual range this season.
We'd take it, right?
Exactly what we need for your theory, Nick, of the collective team needs to get us to 70, 75 goals this season.
Yeah, and I mean, huge congratulations to Mason Burstow for scoring his first senior goal, right? I mean, that has to be a special feeling. I can't imagine how much more special it would be to kind of do it in the waning minutes of a match that you have to draw, But, really excited for Mason. I mean, he has done a lot of running when he's come on and hasn't had a whole lot of service necessarily to get shots off and stuff like that. The fact that he does that with one of his first touches of the game is tremendous. And again, this is what the preseason is for, right? The preseason is for testing out players to see what they're made of, right? I think the final person I would kind of throw into the holy crap, they impressed me category is a consistent name again, and that is Malo Gusto.
Yeah.
I can't get enough of this kid. I am really excited about what he can do for Chelsea this year. I think what surprised me about him is not the passing, which we know was good or anything like that. It's the physicality, man. He is bodying people. He's taken the Reece James, Hulk smash course very quickly over the summer. And it is really, really apparent that he is bulked up, that he is not taking any shit from anybody on the field. And it's, combine that with some of his technical flair, Dan, you have yourself a real special player. It's going to be really interesting to see how Poch uses him if Reece is healthy all year, because it's like you have a good one there. You need to get him minutes.
You, in a perfect world, to maintain Gusto's development and to keep Reece fit, would plan on using one sub per match for Reece James into Gusto. That would just be, to me, would feel like a very smart decision. Now, does that mean 20 minutes? Does that mean 25 minutes? So you're talking about somewhere in the 6 to maybe 700 minute range if he just became the super sub for Reece James through the course of the season. And I'm sure, because Reece James has not yet proven that he can play a perfect season in regard to injuries, probably ends up getting more than that. So it actually feels like we really have done a good job in terms of underwriting Reece James this season to have a very, very capable backup there, and that's an exciting thing to have in place. But we're going to take our very first and quick ad break, and when we get back, we're going to talk about who won preseason, and we'll try to choose this one player each. We will try. That's the key.
Chelsea?
We'll be right back.
Did Chelsea win?
Chelsea won a lot. We'll be right back. All right, so as Nick was alluding to, Chelsea did win preseason, or at least won the Premier League Summer Series tournament. I don't think we won anything from the FC Series or the random Dortmund match that we were involved in. But the players, Nick, the players. We have to pick a player for what apparently I'm being told in DC. DC believed it was the Ross Barkley Player of the Preseason Award. I think I found out in Raleigh it was the Victor Moses Player of the Preseason Award. So I think we're gonna take that as a draw, and we're gonna say moving forward it's just the Player of the LIBP's Player of the Preseason Award. Who is on your list? Who's your top three, and then give me your actual winner. I'll give you the grace there because I know you're gonna have to talk yourself through a few names.
We could call it the LIBP VMRB Player of the Season. Just all the letters. It'll be awesome.
Is that a consulting agency?
Yeah. So we only get one choice a piece. One choice. Is that the rule? Oof.
One apiece. You give me your top. You can give a top three. You can give runner-ups if you want. You have two runner-ups and the winner.
All right. Well, my first runner-up is Ian Maatsen, who I think did absolutely everything that was asked of him in a forward role, never playing in defense, very interestingly. Thought that was a fascinating thing there. My second runner-up, it's tough because I wanted to, it's just so many players that you want to choose from, but I think just based on performances and what he was asked to do early, Malo Gusto would make my second runner-up. And then it's tough because I'm leaving out Nkunku, but Nico Jackson wins the preseason for me. Mentality monster, goal scorer, assister. Everything is clicking. And I think the reason I would give it to him is we have been so hungry for a goal-scoring number 9, and we might have one. I absolutely love watching him play. He's vaulted up the who's going to be Nick's favorite player rankings this preseason. So Nico Jackson wins the preseason for me.
Might there be a sneaky jersey choice when they finally start shipping mid-August?
If he stays 43, yeah. Don't move to 9, Nico. Please save yourself.
Well, a couple from the audience, we did a quick snap poll on Twitter after we watched the match conclude. Janique had the, I think, maybe perfect answer. It was Chelsea fans. Nice that we feel a lot of positivity going into the season. That is the tricky sneak answer there. Now, a very good friend that we've met in person, Mike Murphy, who crosses out Jackson to put Gusto in, which was a bit of a switch there. You had plenty of people saying Jackson, plenty of people saying Maatsen, a few people with some shouts for Andre Santos, a Gallagher call. I do think that you are correct in that Ian Maatsen is in the conversation. I think he absolutely showcased an ability to be influential anywhere he was played, whether that was left wing or right wing or center mid. So he had an opportunity to play in a lot of different positions and never in the position that we saw him at in play for Burnley or other teams prior to this season. Maybe before last time he was in the academy. So this was a really, really nice thing to see that he is going to be a consistent player, that he's played himself into Poch's plans. And unless I think an amazing bid were to come in at this point, he just is penciled in as a part of the solution set for Pochettino at this moment. I think the second one for me, I do like Gusto. I think he is a very, very strong shout. I think Andre Santos shades it just slightly for me as the inclusion in this runner-up pool. I think it gives you a lot of questions about if you have to go with that defensive mid, if you have to go with someone who drops a little bit deeper in that center back pairing. Again, I think he's not a natural defensive mid. I think he was just as impactful playing further forward. But if you're talking about a pivot you can build on for the future, Enzo and Andre Santos is a very interesting conversation for me. I think it would be something I'd like to see more of throughout the season. I think staying would be absolutely great for him in terms of continuing to test him against Premier League opposition and try to level him up on a advanced course trajectory. And then I do think it's no other player than Nico Jackson for player of the preseason. Comes in off of the deal from Villarreal, first signing of the summer. A lot of questions about what his contribution level might be. And although he didn't score in this game, and had opportunities, maybe one went a little too high, maybe another went a little wide. One went directly into the chest of the keeper. The fact, his runs are great, his interchange is great, the way he's always continuing to move around the box, not stopping any of his runs. It's that constant momentum, the constant ability for giving his teammates an opportunity to find him is very, very exciting. I still think that's why we have maybe some questions about, who do we pair in that striker pool? Is Broya and Burstow or enough, or would you want to maybe go add in the market? We know that those conversations are ongoing. We'll talk about them in a little bit. But it feels like the winner of the LIBP Alphabet Soup Award for Player of the Preseason is none other than Nico Jackson, the man himself. Insert applause music here, Jake.
Come claim your prize whenever you want it. It's a great thing. And look, Nkunku, not on either list, was great. Santos, not on my list. Colwill, not on any list. I think Chilwell's played relatively well in the preseason. You look at players like Thiago Silva and Trev Chalobah who played well. Mudryk, not on any list, and he showed some bright sparks, but didn't play necessarily enough to qualify, I think. And we're still missing some pieces, right? So there's a lot to be excited about in this. There's some great moments from Cassidy and Chukwuemeka as well. So look, again, you only gave me 3 choices. I made the 3, but there's a lot of players that will see a lot of minutes this year.
You underline the right point, that the fact that we are in the year 2023, a year removed from the 2022 preseason, and we're now splitting hairs and trying to figure out how we can give more praise to the players we saw during this preseason versus last preseason, where we really struggled to identify who those top performers are going to be. That is a phenomenal year-over-year change for this Chelsea side. We're not talking about players who don't want to be here, aren't happy, on bad contracts, a bite for a few, that still have to be resolved. This is transformative. And I do think there's a lot of criticism around the board and the directors for things that they still haven't gotten done. But they have helped us get into a position with hiring the right manager, recruiting some great players, building upon the talent we already have to get us feeling excited again. The work isn't done, and we should still continue to hold a high bar of what that work getting done looks like and what that remains to be done. But this is a much better place to be in, and it feels so good to be ending preseason in this way.
Yeah, exactly. And I think as we transition, there are also some players that maybe didn't impress in the preseason, and we should talk about that because I think it directly impacts some of the transfer discussion that we have coming up, Dan. Which I'll give you two players that you want to see a lot more out of. What are your 2 and why?
2 players I want to see more out of when it comes to the start of the season.
Yes.
So I would love for Nani Madueke to get healthy enough so that I could see anything from him. That was a very unfortunate timed injury to not get any opportunity to see him this preseason. So I don't think that's necessarily just a knock on him. It's just a matter of the fact that, without getting any time to assess, I think it's made his job that much harder getting back into the side when he's fit, because now Pochettino is thinking about match day 1, match day 2, who's going to be ready, who's going to be healthy. And I think the other player that I have felt better about in the last 2 games, albeit I don't think he's where he would want to be, and I don't think he's where he needs to be. But even on a terrible pitch, I thought some of the runs that Sterling was making, how he was pushing the ball forward, how he was getting balls in the box, not always the right decision, but he was showing me a little more in this match than he had shown, I think, the beginning of preseason. The fitness is not in question. I think it's the decision-making that's in question, and building a rhythm, building comfort with Nkunku and Jackson and others so that there's a chemistry there. Like, we are going to need to see more, because it feels as if this is the lineup that we're going to see against Liverpool, albeit maybe 1 or 2 changes from transfers, incoming or outgoing. And so I feel like Sterling is just going to start against Liverpool. And so needs to show me more, and he needs to show Poch more, because I think his position will be under threat.
Yeah, I think the two for me are pretty conclusive. And one is Cucurella, who did not have a great preseason, if we're honest, about it. Consistently ran out of position, was responsible for a couple of goals, was trusted a lot early, was not trusted a lot late, and I think that's probably for good reason. Rumors that he might be sold, I don't know. Again, it's a really hard contract to move, but for a player of his experience, right, 24 going on 25, played, was brought up through Barcelona's academy, has played preseason football, or played Premier League football for, a couple of years now, just hasn't grown in his performances, and that's really troubling. So got to see a lot more out of him, and I'm worried about Kepa. Again, I made a lighthearted Kepa punch equals automatic goal joke on Twitter that apparently everyone was upset with. It wasn't necessarily the case, so whatever. I will let it go. But didn't really see a whole lot of phenomenal saves in preseason. Didn't really see a whole lot of great positioning in preseason. And, I think based on our goalkeeping situation, which we will talk about in an unfortunate way moving into the next section, I don't know if anyone is pushing him to be a better goalkeeper than he was last season. And again, from a goals conceded perspective, if we do the goals conceded same flat year over year, and we move our goals scored up by double, then we're close to top 4. We're probably 5th or 6th, right? And maybe a couple breaks in games, we get into the top 4. But it can't be that we're scoring more goals and conceding more goals, and I kind of feel like that's where we're going right now.
Yeah, you would hope with the return of a healthy Reece James, with Ben Chilwell being back, with Levi Colwill and Thiago Silva playing on form, that alone should contribute to a decrease in goals conceded. Maybe an addition of a Moises Caicedo or someone else, also helps that, shield the back a little bit more. Kepa is still a question mark. And so we're going to talk about some of the replacements, some of the conversations regarding transfers and whatnot after one last quick break when we're back. A Kepa challenger, Moises Caicedo information, and so much more. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, so you brought it up, Nick. You were talking about the goalkeeper news and the fact that Chelsea has been linked or has identified Sanchez from Brighton. Yes, Brighton, that Brighton, as a potential
Never heard of
number
him, Dan.
2.
Tell me more about him.
This guy, Tony Bloom, owns him. Really, really tough negotiator. Did you know he made all of his money playing poker? Sanchez is apparently who the club have identified as the second choice option to challenge Kepa and come in as a goalkeeper for Chelsea. I think, Nick, there is some assumption that maybe, just maybe, the fact that we would be going after Sanchez as the number 2 option may be directly connected to the Moises Caicedo deal and
Dan,
trying
please.
to help.
Your conspiracy theories are outrageous. How could you think such a thing?
Yeah, the negotiation of 2 players with the same club where one player has a sell-on clause, so every couple of $1 million you add on, or £1 million that you add on to player two's transfer value actually doesn't go to the club you're buying from. So if you can increase the value you sell player A for, the goalkeeper, you would have more money that you'd be able to record as your profits and not have to share. It's an interesting theory. Whether or not that is entirely true, well, remains to be seen. But Sanchez has been identified. I think he is far off of his best performances over the last 1 to 2 seasons. He has been usurped by Steele as the primary goalkeeper at Brighton. He, whether or not you believe rumors or reporting, was not necessarily a great, was not necessarily happy about that. Let's frame it that way. And so there are a lot of question marks. I mean, maybe what's your just reaction to it? Because we're still waiting for more news on this topic to come out.
Look, he's a whole different profile of goalkeeper than Kepa. He's 6'6", more the Mendy type of frame. His, again, I think we're probably overusing player radar and player comparison tools and Twitter this offseason, but even compared to like some keepers from Ligue 1, is not super inspiring in terms of confidence, is basically useless with his feet, which is unfortunate because that is kind of the way that Poch wants to play. I don't understand this at all, unless it is simply we need to get another player off of our books. Since you're not giving us Levi Colwill, will you accept this 6'6" keeper that we no longer want as a part of the deal? And in that case, like, whatever. Who fucking cares? Like, get Caicedo and worry about the rest of it later is kind of my point. But it's not exactly inspiring a whole lot of hope, I'll be honest.
Well, speaking of the other name, Moises Caicedo, the late news or fan fiction, if you were, was that a mysterious bidder has entered the race with an offer better than Chelsea's, shockingly better than Chelsea's. Ooh, this might make it difficult for Chelsea to acquire the player, but we won't tell you, or we won't tell Caicedo's camp who the mysterious bidder is. Is it Liverpool, who need midfielders? Is it a Saudi team flush with money? We don't know. Wink.
It's a deal so good we won't tell you anything about it. Here's how you know that's bullshit. If it were that good, they would have already accepted it and moved on. And it turns out that they haven't and won't because it doesn't really exist. Look, it's entirely possible that another team could come in for Caicedo, but I guarantee you if it's a serious offer from Liverpool or from Saudi, we will know the name of the fucking team that comes in. It won't be a mystery bidder, okay? And certainly if Caicedo signed a new deal last year, he will have some sort of rights in that contract to at least be able to sort through like personal terms with the incoming team. So it's a bag of bullshit, basically. Do not read anything into that. Whoever briefed that, Andy Naylor, it's a clown show.
Andy just writes the stories. How he gets briefed is maybe a different question. So let's say the last bit of news that we should touch on is
one more midfielder that we should talk about. A lot of smoke around Tyler Adams right now. Who's a U.S. international. Would be about £20 million from Leeds. Is basically only a destroyer. Offers nothing moving forward. He's the U.S. captain. He's a really, really good player, but is largely a support vehicle for a player like Enzo, which is why you could potentially see that working. Is great in a tackle. Is fierce. Is a leader. Right. Has a lot of the profile that you would be looking for. Has had a couple injuries in recent years, if I'm going to be, completely honest about it. But I mean, for £20 million, it's like you take a punt on me for £20 million to stay with the way player salaries are. So it would be one that I would be interested if it happens in addition to something like Caicedo getting done, to have that extra midfield support in there for matches that maybe require us to have a deeper sitting midfielder. because Caicedo's not going to ever play like a pure 6 and a 4-3-3. He's just not that guy. But Tyler Adams is. Like, Tyler Adams has done that plenty of times. So, very different player from Caicedo. Doesn't offer anything moving forward, but is a lot of what we might require to let other players thrive.
Not a lot of updates on Kudus, Shirky, or Olise at this point, so definitely feels like the noise around an attacker has gone deathly silent at this moment, so we'll wait to see if anything transpires there. But a forward, Nick, that's where Chelsea may be trying to reinforce.
Is it Mbappe? Are we doing a eight player plus $100 million deal for Mbappe? Is that what's happening, Dan?
No. See, they have to pay us.
That's right. We're doing the Italian model. Yeah, we're doing the Italian model. I like this. Tell me more about this model, please.
So would I be able to interest you in a Dusan Vlahovic Lukaku swap where Lukaku goes and we pay 40 to 50 million euros in addition to Lukaku to get Dusan over to Chelsea?
You may not interest me in that, Dan. And in fact, you can go fuck yourself. How about that?
You were on one tonight.
Yeah, I read this story yesterday, and I thought it was a fake, like, Sun story, like, coming from the Sun, and it wasn't. It turns out that Inter's gumption is at an all-time high right now. They are feeling themselves after destroying Real Madrid or whatever in preseason. This is absolute nonsense. Like, first of all, Lukaku is a far more accomplished player. He's on a far bigger salary. He's done more. By the way, like, Inter wanted to pay for him. Juventus now into this. Sorry if I said Inter earlier. Inter also has a ton of gumption and no money, but this is the Italian club way, apparently. We've already taken haircuts on other players. We cannot do this deal. Like, this makes no fucking sense. Vlahovic isn't a player that any of us are excited about anyway. And to pay for the privilege plus give Juventus the player that they want already is absolute fucking nonsense. In fact, I would just stop talking to Juve altogether after that. So that's kind of how I feel about it.
Well, we did
Mbappe.
see quotes.
Let's talk more.
We did see quotes from Pochettino about maybe wanting a individual up top to compete or add depth for the striker position. We don't know where Broja's at. I mean, he hasn't featured in any of the preseason matches after coming off of his ACL injury, so it would really be Bursto as the second choice striker, or using some combination of like a Nkunku as a 9, which isn't really great, using Sterling as a 9, which isn't really great. And so there's not a lot of good options if there were an injury. And so I get why the club is looking at this position. It feels like a different profile might work better. I mean, someone like the stopgap solution who's like in the, like a Giroud type signing where they're a little more experienced. They're not going to add tons of volume, but they give you a target to work off of and play off of the same way that we can play off of Jackson with others who maybe offers a little more like an holding up than the kind of combo play would be interesting. I don't know who that is. I'm just trying to think about maybe who would fit the really explosive and dynamic attack we have. But this deal with Juventus does not feel like a good path forward, but you could see where two clubs trying to maybe make some magical accounting magic happen might be able to find a way forward. You just wish it was Chelsea convincing Lukaku that one of the many Saudi offers was the best path forward for all parties involved.
Still could be too, right? I mean, if this doesn't go through, there won't be any other option. So,
the Saudi window is open until mid-September, which Jurgen Klopp recently was pointing out that it's a unfair advantage that they have to be able to poach players.
First of all, I just love Jurgen Klopp. After selling 3 players to Saudi, you know what? It's a really unfair advantage is they may come back for more. Like, dude, absolute, just shut up. It's just crazy. One last note, and this is not a transfer related thing, but Pochettino did talk about Nkunku's potential injury. The doctors are checking on him, and I hope it's not a big issue. He fell in the action, was maybe a penalty, definitely was a penalty, and he feels something in his knee, but we hope it is nothing big. We hope he can get back quickly with the team. We need a few days to assess. He said on the field, there's video of him going, I'm fine. So hopefully this is just a precautionary thing. Bad pitch, don't want to risk it. He is coming off of an injury that is, kind of derailed the end of or the middle of the season, I should say, and kept him out of the World Cup, which was a huge bummer. So let's just hope that he can get fully fit before Liverpool.
Absolutely. Well, that is going to do it for this one. Happy birthday, Brandon Busby, by not having to record a podcast with your two favorite friends, talking about this Dortmund match and many other things. But this is it. This is the cap on preseason. It is over. All pods now can focus on what the season in store has for us, what lies ahead on Chelsea and Pochettino's journey and all of our journey for the rest of the season. But Nick, any final words of wisdom as we cap out on this one?
Get a fucking midfielder in. Anyone? It's okay.
Well, that will do it with Nick's wonderful direction on what needs to happen for Chelsea in the remainder of the transfer market. But there is so much more action coming your way. We've got a couple of Sam pods. We've got some more famous CFC episodes. We've got a couple of new guests that are going to be joining us for the first time to talk some tactics, which is always exciting. So stay tuned over the next couple of weeks as we get ready for the Premier League season to kick off. Chelsea versus Liverpool on the 13th, but plenty of more pods between now and then. Go check out Blue Royalty, who've been doing a great job covering the Women's World Cup. But until next time, Chelsea fans, you know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high.